Kombucha, sage.
I think I'm starting to turn into a hippie, Scott. What do you think?
I mean, the transformation's nearly complete, isn't it?
I know. I'm just missing some sandals right now.
That's funny. I guess the hippies were right.
They're always right. Just takes a while for people to recognize that.
That's funny.
Yeah, I'm trying to cut back on the kombucha because it's got sugar in it. I'm going to be cutting into my guides have me on a restriction diet. Now all of a sudden I'm restricted from sugar. I'm restricted from fried food. I'm restricted from complex carbs. I'm restricted from all of the naughty things that I should not be having anymore for a little while. They're like, all right, you've had enough fun. Basically, like it's time to get serious here. You know?
Wow.
And
sounds like quite a change.
I've always been a bit like hedonistic. I'm not gonna lie. Like I've always been kind of one of those people that's like, I'm gonna treat myself today. You know? I treated myself. I got injured like within an hour. Not even within 10 minutes, actually, come to think of it. No, within 10 minutes of treating myself, my guides, I don't know what it was. I tripped over my own feet and went flying again. So I was like, all right, there's obviously some problems going on here with my balance and my lack of grounding and a whole lot of other stuff. And they're like, yeah, you need to take this more seriously. So this is me taking things more seriously. I'm cutting back on all the naughty things.
Oh, man. Was that when you injured your arm?
We have glitches in the matrix. That was weird. Devices not supported. And no, this was this was literally 3 days ago. I didn't mention that the other day. It says you're still here, but it says your devices are not connected. We're having glitches in the matrix, Dr. Scott.
I'm back, I think.
It says you're still here.
I flipped out of the matrix for a second. Now I'm back.
I love your shirt, by the way.
Thanks.
It's like a red pill shirt. We're talking about the Matrix, and here you are. Wake up. Are you awake? Like somebody pinched me. Am I awake?
It's a pretty good message for, not just myself, but everyone, I think, because more than ever, people are awake that there's shenanigans afoot. There's shenanigans in media. There's shenanigans from government. There's shenanigans from religious institutions. And so I think wake up is just
the next man that says shenanigans. I love Super Troopers. Great movie. So yeah, I'm a big fan of shenanigans. That is my thing. Like it's like the more youthful. It's funny that we're having a conversation about this right after April 1st. Like, did anybody get April Fool's pranked yesterday? Anybody get any good pranks yesterday? I got pranked by a meme, but other than that, it didn't. I saw one meme that got me for about 10 seconds. And that was it. The rest of the day, I was on alert the whole day. So nothing got me yet.
Someone fact checked me on this, but I was reading that when Pope Gregory switched us to the current calendar system,
yes,
that happened on April 1st. I don't know if that's an April Fool's joke itself, but
well, that was the original New Year, because they started the year with the spring equinox. And the reason it used to be around that date was because we would always have 28 days in a month. We had 13-month calendar with 28 days each. And it was very normal for everybody, but whenever they always alter time. Like they did it a couple times. There was one in the 7th century where I forget which pope it was, but he added 700 years to the calendar just so they could seize land from someone that had a 1,000-year lease. Wow. They had a 1,000-year lease on land in northern Italy, and the pope was like, oh, yoink, this is mine. And they're like, you can't have that. We have another 700 years on our lease. And he's like, what are you talking about? It's not 1,300 anymore, like they changed it completely. They added 700 years to the calendar overnight.
I don't know if the joke part of it was anyone who stuck to the old calendar was referred to as fools. I did read that somewhere. Is that? I'm wondering.
Yeah. Well, according to the story, there's not really ways of fact checking things from 500 years ago. And there was one reference in one book. I'm a nerd. I read up in these things. There's one reference to April Fool's that predates it. So a lot of people are like, But I think it was already a custom where they were already pranking people, and then they decided to make it into a much bigger thing after the calendar change fell on the same day. So there was already like pranks, like April 1st was already like a practical joke day in England and Ireland for some reason. Like they were doing this back in like the 1400s, pranking people. They would send their workers on like stupid errands that made no sense just for fun. Like it wasn't even like a nice prank. They'd be like sending you to go, I don't know, go chase a chicken or something, and you weren't actually supposed to do it, you know, and it was something that they gave you just to mess with you. So yeah, I know, right? We humans don't change that much over time.
Weirdly enough, I think that one of the effects of that is we don't know what year it is, like the real year. We think it's 2025, but if you take into consideration the calendar shenanigans, what year is it really? Right? I know the Coptics, the Coptic Christians and the Coptic Jews in North Africa, they think it's the year 2012 right now. So
now, see, that would get real interesting if we were wrong about the Mayan calendar. The whole thought 2012 was, a decade ago, and then we're like, oh, actually, it's coming up again.
Although maybe it's 2013 now. I think it was last year when I was researching this, so maybe they think it's 2013 now. But either way, when you're talking about
calendars around the world with different dates. In fact, years by culture. Yeah, see, there's all kinds of different calendars. The Igbo calendar says it's actually 1026. The Iranian calendar says it's 1404 right now. The Islamic calendar believes it is 1446. There's 30 more rows of this for the record. So I can keep going. But you get my point, right?
It's kind of one problem.
In Thailand, it's year 2500.
Wow. I see that. It calls into question, like, this is the problem with prophecy. According to whose calendar is something going to happen by, because you got like 30 choices,
Yeah, exactly. But I really liked the 28-day calendar. I liked the 13-month calendar. First of all, they stole a zodiac from us. They stole a whole sign from us. Some of us actually would be an officious sign if they'd managed to keep things how they were supposed to.
Yes, the officious sign. I think, imagine what that would just do to birth signs if that was properly restored.
Yeah.
You've been thinking you're a Sagittarius.
When is supposed to land?
People are walking around thinking they're they're a Sagittarius, like myself, and they're really an officious, however you say it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're saying it was supposed to be linked between Scorpio and Sagittarius. So it was supposed to be the end of November and December and beginning of December. So for those of you who have a November to December birthday, you may actually technically have a different sign according to the old calendar and the old way of doing things.
Right. You may not know what your sign is.
You'd be surprised how much the calendar affects people too. Like the way that changing the calendar changed society, changed the whole planet in many ways. Yep.
And they did that with, rudimentary paperwork and indoctrination. That's all they needed back then.
Yeah. Well, it's not like there was the internet helping people to discern more information. You believed what you were told by your mentors and your people of authority, most of which were related to the church.
A lot of these strange, I don't want to call them evil, but a lot of these strange practices go back and originate in the church. And I know Easter's coming up, and so church is a good topic.
It is. Well, it's always underlying. It's always, connected to all the things. That's kind of how they wanted it in the first place. So basically, every time there's any sort of holiday, there is some kind of religious connotation in the background somewhere, usually. But Easter is funny because that was one of the stolen holidays, technically, because it wasn't always Easter. That was one of the pagan holidays that they were like, mine.
Yeah. And what a efficient way to conquer the known world at the time, you know.
I always wondered how we went from a pagan fertility goddess to Jesus and, you know, the resurrection and all of these things. It's quite a turnaround, you know.
It's quite a story in and of itself because, you know, it's no secret that Rome just assimilated a lot of these holidays, including Easter. And yes, there's pagan ties to them. But it goes back even further than that. I mean, before there was even, I guess I don't want to say the written word, but before there was this concept of birth, death, and resurrection, there was just the ever-present being. There was just the ever-present now. You know, we existed in the moment, right?
Yep.
That's a rabbit hole for probably a different day, but it's good. It's good to know, because this sort of leads into the Gnostic wisdom and this Easter holiday and what it's really supposed to be about. Maybe some of your viewers would like to stir the pot with their friends and family and
always
challenge them on what Easter is, what it isn't.
Well, Easter falls on 420 this year, so it could be a very interesting holiday this year. You could have all those fun conversations around the dinner table.
That's funny. That's funny. I noticed I was researching some of these old Gnostic texts, and I came across one called the Book of Jeu. And it's hard to pronounce. It's Jeu. And so you either say it by saying Yu, if you want to be more faithful to the Hebrew language, or you say the more common Book of Jeu, sort of like with a soft J. Yeah. But in this book, Lara, first of all, the book's encrypted, right? It's not, there's no real English translation of this book. And using the word book is kind of a generous term because it's a collection of decayed papyrus, right? And so they've been able to sort of kind of guess what this was about. In the 1700s, there was a Scottish explorer, and he found this Book of Jeu. I just put a video about this on my Matrix Spirituality channel on YouTube. Nice. He found this book and started telling us what it was about, but it was so encrypted. You get the impression that he's reading this book, so he'll be deciphering what this book says, and he writes 2 lines. And these lines are his opinion on what he thinks the book is about. And that's what we have as the book today, this Scottish explorer's opinions on what he thinks the book is about. But even that is mind-blowing. Let me just tell you, if the Scottish explorer is right, it has Jesus, or Yeshua, as he should be called. It has him doing sealing rituals on the disciples. So a sealing ritual is something that marks your soul, right? So he's doing, and this book is an esoteric explanation of these different sealing rituals that Yeshua was doing. That's just to get it started. The book goes way down the rabbit hole from there. It talks about the archons by name and binding the archons.
Wow.
Binding the archons, right? So through these rituals,
for those who don't know what an archon is, they're basically like it's the antithesis to an angel. It's like the opposite spectrum, you know, as above, so below. And yeah, they're very, very powerful dark beings. Yep. Wow.
And these rituals that Yeshua was conducting with his disciples were meant to protect them from the archontic influence, if that's the correct word, archontic, the archon's influence. So he sealed his disciples off from their influence with these rituals, which he describes as a baptism by fire That's weird. Baptism by fire. A ritual offering of bread and wine with incense ritual. And then sealing each disciple off with a seal, a soul seal. Right? So this is really esoteric stuff. And it's not meant for the uninitiated. It's not meant for the masses.
Well, yeah, because it's confusing as hell. Unless you really understand the whole process of what he's even talking about, it's going to go way over your head. Even now, I mean, thousands of years later, we're still kind of trying to catch up to the knowledge that they had back then, because so much has been lost over that time. So much has been stolen and kept from us over that time. They don't want us to know these things because then it would empower us. They want us being affected by these beings. Mm-hmm.
When I was reading this, the archons, the description of the archons matched what the other Gnostic texts and the Dead Sea Scrolls say about them, which, you're spot on in the way you characterize them. I would only add that they are in charge of this material realm. Like it's
very low vibrational. That's why it's very low and dense vibration, which is why it's more their domain than the higher beings. Because when you have everything low and dense, it becomes your space. It's your, it's an environment that is ideal for you, not for these higher frequency beings. So that is the name of the game, to keep Earth dense and low and, very easy accessible to these beings of lower density as well.
And when Yeshua initiated these disciples and sealed them off from the archontic influence, then he went on to teach them how to traverse the realms freely, right? So this, opens up a whole new perspective just in time for Easter on, who's really in charge, who was Jesus, and why did the church put up this Jesus figure in place of Yeshua? Well, yes, I know they didn't have a J in there by the time it was translated to Greek. That's the pop.
They're like, no. Wow.
Am I back? I'm back.
They're like,
I must have a spotty connection today.
Funny how that happens whenever we talk about things like this. The connection starts getting weird. Where's my Palo Santo? Just in case. Well, maybe it's Dr. Scott that needs to lay it. It's your video feed that keeps dropping.
Yeah, it's something on my end. I don't know what, but it's something.
That's all good. But no, I completely agree. And, we call these level 4s in my line of work because, it doesn't exactly fall under the lines of demonic. It doesn't fall under the lines of galactic. They're their whole own category. And many of these beings are extremely ancient, like to the point where they even predate humanity. They were here on Earth first. So technically they feel that this is my place. You know what I mean? Like y'all are basically considered to be like children, but to them, they're just like, you humans, you puny, pathetic humans. That's kind of their attitude.
They're the original deep state then, Laura.
Yeah, they were.
100%. The OG deep staters are these archons. Yep. And so if they're in charge here, beyond this material realm, they have no influence, right? Is the logic there. And that's the purpose of what Yeshua was trying to educate his disciples on, is opening their eyes after initiation, saying, this material realm is just that. It's just the material realm. There is an entire other ecosystem beyond. Yes. Right. And he was educating them a little bit about what it's like to be here and what it's like to be there. And then, spoiler alert, later, he would show them directly after his own continuance or resurrection. He'd show them, hey guys, check out my spirit body, right? Look, I can teleport. Isn't that awesome? See, I told you so. Right. And sort of doing his victory walk.
Beings can do that. When you ascend, and he had like 3 days to like do his ascension process. And then I believe like even in Stargate, ascended beings could rematerialize themselves. They can remanifest themselves physically. Mm-hmm.
So it was like Daniel Jackson then. He just popping in and out of places.
Daniel Jackson did it. Why not? Anybody can do
Yeah.
it if Daniel Jackson did it. I believe that's part of our hierarchy as we're working our way up to more and more complex bodies. And eventually you don't even need a physical body. You become a light being. They can manifest themselves in all sorts of different ways. However, what's interesting is the space needs to be high vibe for them to manifest themselves physically. So you may notice that certain areas are like devoid of good beings and light beings. And then you go into another area and you're like, wow, everything feels amazing here. Well, that's why. It's the high vibe space allows high vibe entities to come in. And the low vibe spaces allow low vibe entities. This is why so many people need to be aware of the space that you are creating. Because if your space is low vibe, if your house is filled with horror movies and creepy shit and low vibe arguments and all that stuff, your vibration of that home is going to be affecting you every time you come back into it. So the guides, one of the most important things for aftercare is make sure your space is high vibe. Because then the high vibe beings can come into it. Otherwise, you're just going to attract the low vibe shit that you don't want. Mm-hmm.
Totally agree. And, there's so many different guests you have on that are experts at helping you clear spaces, or even just some selenite placed around the borders of your house will do wonders, right? So there's so many different things people can do for that. But the weird thing for me is I was reading through this Scottish explorer's description of this book of Zhu. All of it resonated. Every single bit resonated. I'll put a link in the chat. You guys can see this for yourself. I'll put it in private chat. And then if you want to share it, great. But anybody can read this material, and you can even get some hard copies. I get there to go for $200 on eBay, which is, pretty pricey. But just looking. Yeah.
There's the link. Oops,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was trying to highlight that, and I was highlighting the wrong comment. That one. That's the gnosis.org, yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just reading about the baptism of water, of fire, of bread and incense, and the sealing of the disciples with the seal. I'm trying to put myself in the mind frame of someone during the Inquisition, right? The hearsay hunters. What would they say about that, right? Here is Yeshua doing ritual and doing stuff with soul magic. I sort of think that Yeshua might have gotten himself burned at the stake by the Catholic Church.
It kind of is, that was that version of what they were doing back then. That was the Roman version anyway.
Yeah. And we know that he was just reading the legend of Saint Isa, the Gospel of the Holy 12, the secret Gospel of John. We know he was skilled in multiple modalities, any of which I think would also get him burned at the stake, which is an interesting sort of ironic picture of him for Easter, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, it's many people. I mean, look at Hermes Trismegistus and many others. There were so many very powerful educators back then that were teaching people very powerful ways of shifting vibration and using energy for all kinds of different purposes. And they used crystals back then. They even had, like these big, beautiful breastplates that would be covered in crystals for the sake of protection. This is all ancient knowledge that we're revisiting.
Even going into the Holy of Holies for the Ark of the Covenant, like you needed that stuff.
Yep.
Oh
yeah.
Radiation
There's all
protection.
kinds of interesting things in these books that we're studying now and going, okay, now I can see the parallels in this and how it's almost like history is repeating itself even now.
Yeah. This is why my personal opinion here is that the problem with religion is religion. It's when we're trying to deify something that was never meant to be deified.
Yeah.
That's one problem. The other problem is how they teach the material, how these mainstream institutions, these mainstream religions, how they teach the material, because even just the material in the Bible is so conflictory that you need great discernment just to be able to read through it and understand what it is you're seeing. And most people give up, and they give that authority over to the church to interpret it for
or
them.
they just don't even try and take it literally. Like they don't even. There's a lot of hidden subtext there. There's a lot of programming in a way too, in there. And so it's like Dolores would say, it's like a buffet. You take what resonates and you leave the rest. If it doesn't resonate with you, or you can find out, a lot of this is encoded. So perhaps after you dig into it a bit more, you'll understand the deeper meaning that was actually, meant to be.
Yeah, I think that's where people are getting to nowadays. In my humble opinion and experience, you grow up, if you grow up like I did, you grow up going to church. And then at one point you're like, wait, this doesn't resonate. I'm going to put it aside. So you kind of go from going to church to putting it aside. But then there's a third movement after that where it's like, wait a minute, what was those other things that resonated? What did those mean? And I think that's where people are getting to now. They're getting to that third phase where they're questioning what they were taught, and they're reading the material for themselves. And then they're realizing, wait, it's not this material. The material is 80% great. The church is the ones that are teaching it and wielding it like a hammer.
Mm-hmm. And that's also why a lot of this was off limits. Even the symbols were off limits for a long time. You couldn't even use, in fact, there were people that were killed just for possessing a Bible that wasn't written in Latin.
Wow, yes.
You remember, like, isn't that crazy that people were literally killed just for having the Bible translated into another language that the common folk would understand? So in most cases, when you were sitting in church and they were preaching, you didn't understand what the fuck they were saying. You were just like, all right. I mean, they could have been doing demonic seances. We have no idea what they were doing in church because they hid it from us completely.
Well, and what, this many centuries later, you look back on that and you have to wonder why they were trying to keep everything under lock and key. And what do they still have under lock and key?
50 miles of archives.
50 miles of archives.
50 miles.
Several Arks of the Covenant.
Under the Vatican. Don't even get me started. I even tried to get down there myself with astral projection because I was like, what do they have? I need to know. There's a movie, or not movie, it's a TV show. I forget what it's called. It's like Warehouse 13, I think it was. And it was all the magic items from around the world. And they took all of these items and locked them up. And like they did in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, how they put the Ark inside this giant building that was filled with boxes and you'd never find out which place it was. They have places like that all over the world where anything that's magic, anything that is, well, obviously not demonic stuff. They'll just put that into a house and make a TV show out of it. But if it's actual real magic, they lock that shit up and don't let anybody see it. Same goes for things like Father Crespi, who found all kinds of artifacts in the jungle and was like, hey, wait a minute, why do we have Anunnaki artifacts matching things from Iran all the way here in Ecuador? And they're like, oh, and then they buried it and stole all of his artifacts and then took them straight back to the Vatican.
Isn't that interesting? Just the amount of subterfuge and espionage and hidden knowledge. I think my humble opinion again is just these things are here to teach us a lesson. While we might not have access to the archives and maybe we won't know what these items are for, just their very existence helps us ask the next question. And the next question is, what are you hiding then? And next question after that is, why are you hiding it? Right? So they wouldn't be hiding it if knowledge wasn't power. And because knowledge is power, they want to keep the power. And so that's why they're hiding it. Ultimately, I don't think that's a big shock to anyone.
100% knowledge is power. That's why they didn't want us even using astrology. Like the astrology we use today is watered down and completely washed out compared to the kind that they use.
And it's
their
missing
version
a sign.
is a lot more advanced because they use the real calendar too.
Yeah. Right. We're so inept as humans on this planet. We don't even know really what year it is.
Yes.
It's just kind of
reinvent the year. Like we'll just we'll just pick one that doesn't go with what they say, and that's fine. It's probably more accurate.
It's like daylight savings time. Like we humans are just going to say, well, we're going to just shave an hour off here and add one there, as if as if we're affecting sunlight.
And it messes me up every time it happens. Every time daylight savings comes through, it messes me up for like at least a couple weeks on stuff, especially because England is behind on their stuff and most of my mediums are in England. So I'm always constantly fighting with the clocks, like trying to figure out what time is which and this and that. It's so confusing and annoying, but they do that for a reason.
And time doesn't really exist anyway, as we know.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, I agree. That's why you and I don't age, Dr. Scott.
Well, thank you for that. Yes. I appreciate that. But you mentioned symbols earlier, and symbology is something that's being kept from us. And symbology is mentioned in this book of Zhu. It's mentioned many times in the Gnostic texts and the Nag Hammadi and the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so what is it with symbols, I wonder, that we're not supposed to remember or know? What is it? Why are symbols dictated to us, and some are taboo and some are allowed? Aren't they just squiggly lines on paper? Is there more to it, maybe?
There's a lot of power in symbolism because people put intention into those things. And when you have an entire collective putting intention into something, you boost the efficiency of whatever that intention is. We amplify it. So if people believe like a heart is the symbol of love, it becomes the symbol of love for everybody, because really it's almost like waving is considered to be like a nice thing. We've all learned that waving, no matter what language you speak, you wave to somebody, you're saying hello or goodbye. Yeah. And so it becomes an understanding after a long time.
Well, this is a good time then to show the symbol.
Ariana was already complimenting me. She says I look very comfy today. Thank you very much, Ariana. I'm rocking mine as well. I've got my my hoodie on from Dr. Scott.
Yeah, it looks great.
Thank you. It's so comfy. This is honestly the comfiest hoodie I own. And it's got the flower of life on the pocket there.
Yep.
I love it. So comfy.
Yeah, and while we're talking about symbols, why do we have these symbols on the clothing, and what do they mean? We didn't want them to be big and like
flashy,
neon colored. We wanted them to be subtle. Just kind of muted. But the reason why we have a flower of life on the front of that garment, for those that don't know, this is a sacred geometric symbol. It's a series of concentric circles. And this symbol, the flower of life, the Egyptians called it the net. It's the scaffolding that holds up the entire universe. It's the simulation. And wearing it on your heart center allows one to move through life with, it symbolizes clarity, intention, and the expectation that your life is going to unfold in your favor. That's why we put it over the heart chakra, the center of love, because that's how we feel everyone should be. We should all be coming from the heart, and we should all move with that clarity and intention. That's why we have that symbol on the front.
I love the flower of life. It's one of my favorite symbols because it works for so many different things. It can be a powerful protection symbol. It can be a healing symbol. It can be a symbol of knowledge. I mean, like the foo dogs are always like standing on one, like a ball with the flower of life on it, or, and it's also like, for those who have understood the fact that we exist in a holographic reality, if you could see the hologram, you would understand that there's a reason a lot of these symbols are considered sacred geometry, because they're a part of our whole reality. Like they make up our reality.
Yeah, some of your viewers may be familiar with Terrence Howard and his recent mathematical thesis on the structure of reality, and he says it's the flower of life. And he points to earlier works, and he cites his own work, and his spoiler alert, his mathematical formulae are highly contested in the mainstream academic realm. Yet he made a very salient point, in my opinion, which was nature doesn't do a straight line. You cannot have a straight line, even if you draw it on paper or with a computer or with a laser leveler. It's not really straight. If you can zoom in far enough, you're going to find curvatures, and those curvatures link to the flower of life. and that flower of life links to the simulation. And if you have that knowledge, you can be like, Yeshua and manipulate life in your favor.
Yes,
That is
exactly.
that's the chain of logic there. So I love to hear Terrence Howard's expose on this. Even, I sort of am drawn to somewhat hated academics because, why is he getting all the flack?
Yes.
Those old World War II bomber pilots knew they were over the target when they were seeing the most flak come up from the ground at them. They're getting shot at. That's when they know they're over
it can be used in both ways, create or destroy,
Yeah.
Everything is linked. And the Fibonacci spiral, I love the Fibonacci posts. I see all the Fibonacci spiral stuff. A lot of times they're actually quite humorous when people are pointing out the Fibonacci and things like a man's beer belly. But it's really funny how these things But it's funny because you do notice these things everywhere when you start looking.
Yep. That's good. And it's everywhere. And that explains why we put the logo on the front of the hoodie. On the back of the hoodie, we've got two symbols. We've got the Ankh, and yes, thank you, Lara. See, it looks great. It looks great on you.
It does. Thank you. I love it. It's very protective.
It's the Egyptian Ankh and the Eye of Horus.
Yes.
There's a reason why we put them on your back. Again, it's your back. You can't watch your back all the time. So there's great symbology in having protective symbols on your on your backside. Yes. The Eye of Horus has been used for thousands of years as a symbol for spiritual protection and awakened perception. Right? It's supposed to shield you from unseen influences and help you stay tuned to your higher awareness. Well, that's powerful by itself, but isn't that great to have it on your back, watching your back, so that you can kind of keep your awareness back there?
I love that. That's brilliant. It really is. It's like, I do not consent, which is funny though, because I actually, I have a symbol on my back here. That's the Triskelion symbol.
That's beautiful.
I also have on my back for the sake of protection. It watches my back, so to speak.
Beautiful work there. Yeah.
Thank you. Because there's lots of different symbols that Triskelions and other things, they are all symbols of power. In fact, I asked one of the guides, it's like, what is the significance of the Triskelion? Why was it used everywhere? And he said it was a powerful protection symbol that was also infused with dragon energy. So it amplified the protective of it. And I was like, ooh, perfect. He said it also blocks black magic too. And he told me all this after I got it. And I'm like, no wonder I got it. Like, I just knew I had to get it.
That's a great point. And I would love to do depending on how good this launch goes, I'd love to do a shirt with the Triskelion on it.
Oh, are you kidding? Please. Yeah. I'll be first in line to get one. Yep.
Weirdly enough, outside of my house over there's a park that's in the shape of a triangle. And in this park, they have two standing stones. And on the standing stones are Triskelions. It's weird.
They're all over, and there's different types of them too. Like I have this little thing I put candles on, and she's got the Triskelion
right there. See that. Yeah.
And then there's another one that I've been getting. I got this in Ireland. Where's Ireland? Awesome. In Ireland. So there's different types that you see all over the world. And they all kind of mean something different depending on the culture that it was a part of it. I love it. I really feel really close to the triple spiral, but a lot of other people resonate with things like the Celtic knots. Yeah, the Celtic knots is a big one. Mm-hmm. The triquetra. Yeah, Bradley loves the triquetra. And so many of us are remembering the power of these symbols. That's why you're drawn to them.
And it's that power that we're trying to take back and put into our high vibrational fabrics and incorporate the symbol's meaning into the fabrics so that we can once again wear them daily. And I don't think that's a stretch for our audience here. We like symbols and we like things, in our house, protective symbols and whatnot. But getting it out to the masses, even in a muted, subtle way is powerful in my opinion.
No, absolutely.
The Egyptian Ankh itself,
I love the Ankh. I wear it every day. Yeah, I love the Ankh.
Yeah. that's again, that's on the back. That's a symbol of vitality. It's a symbol of union between the masculine and the feminine. And depending upon how far down the rabbit hole you want to get with the Ankh, it was called the Key of Life. And, you know, these ETs or these Anunnaki or these demigods would be seen carrying one as they voyaged between worlds, right? So that sort of symbology we have, again, on your back, linked with the Eye of Horus for very specific intentions. And so this is the type of research that we're trying to do as we are trying to incorporate symbols into fabrics. And the fabrics are 100% cotton, organic cotton, not just
organic cotton.
Yeah.
Feels great.
So Lara, for your audience, I want to open it up to you guys. If you guys go to, I think I put the link for you in the private chat.
Mystic Matrix Designs, that's the one?
Mystic Matrix Designs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
If you go there, it's going to ask you for a password. The password you should put in is rabbit, RABBIT, just the word rabbit. We only have one product right now. It's this gray hoodie that you see Lara wearing. And, you know, but depending upon how well we do with this launch, we would love to bring an entire line of Mystic Matrix designs that have this sort of thought and intention going into taking our symbols back and putting them on our clothing. That's what we're ultimately trying to do. So if you want to support, if you like the hoodie, if it resonates with you, I encourage you to go to the website, pick yourself up one, because this is for you guys viewing, maybe this on recording for a couple days. This doesn't go live to the public until Friday. So you guys can get in and buy it ahead of time. I think we're already running low on extra large. So
that's what I got, because I like mine extra comfy. Yeah.
People like to wear them like blankets. You know?
Yeah, I'm exactly like that. Yep. But I love it. In fact, we could even take this to the next level, infuse with crystals, and end up doing like even Faraday type clothing with it silver thread and other things. Like you could totally expand on this in really cool ways.
Yeah, and athletic wear. You know, that's something that we also want to look at. But just with the silver lined clothing, that itself is super powerful. In a jacket, in a hat. We'd love to go there if we can do it in a way where, you know, it's not priced to oblivion, and if we could get supplies, we'd love to do something like that. So
that would be great. Love that. Alicia wants to know if we post to Australia.
Unfortunately, it's just for domestic United States, guys.
Yes.
But we will have international shipping open up soon. Yes.
I would love to do a class in Australia. I'll just bring a box of them with me, and you guys can meet up with me in Australia. Yeah, I've been wanting to come to Oz anyway. So I'll just bring a whole bunch of really cool stuff with me, and then we'll work it out.
Sounds like a fun place to go. I'd love to go myself.
I love Australia, although Sydney was okay. We'll put it that way. Sydney was all right. It reminded me of Miami. Okay. It was nice. The bat was the one that threw me off. I'm just saying. They had giant fruit bats that blot out the sun every night. That was interesting. But yeah, love it. We'll make a plan. Kat says, what are you thinking? Can you guys do linen? That's a good idea. Yes. What about hemp? Yeah.
Hemp is a good vibrational fabric that we can, I believe, source well. So bamboo is another one. So we have a couple of high vibrational options open to us. We're going to avoid the polyester and those type of things.
That's sacrilegious anyway. It's banned in the Bible. Leviticus says no to polyester.
That's true. They do. They do.
You're not allowed to mix fabrics. It's against the law. Yeah, you're not allowed to shave your head either, Dr. Scott, just for the record. No shaving or cutting your hair.
Well, this was completely natural, you know. Does that count?
Yes. No tattoos either. We're not allowed to have tattoos. Technically, that's also desecration of the temple.
Also, you're not supposed to suffer witches to live, you know, in that book. So
not allowed to talk with menstruating women.
Nope. Right?
Yes. So it's funny how, people pick and choose what they like from the Bible versus what they, yeah.
I remember reading that.
By any of the rules in their entirety. Even priests are not abiding by all the rules in their entirety. Not a chance, especially the priests, I should say. Do as I say, not as I do.
Right. Yes. Right. And just reading some of these old texts, the Gnostic texts, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then you look at something like Leviticus and parts of Exodus, it's really eye-opening because the tone of the Old Testament books is very sort of dark, low vibrational, destructive. I mean,
well, when you start to learn who actually wrote it, because according to the Tegetans, the New Testament is actually the Old Testament. The New Testament was written first, and then the Old Testament was written later, and then they tried to argue that it was actually backwards. So it was actually like Nero and one other Roman emperor, I forget his son, some psychopath emperor, I can't remember his name. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, they were the ones that technically wrote the Old Testament and then tried to sell it as the original book when it wasn't.
Must have been George Lucas in charge because he writes 4, 5, and 6 and then does 1, 2, and 3, and it's like, what are you doing?
Exactly. Well, that's why it's so strange. Was because the people that wrote those Bibles were trying to really control people, and through fear, most of all.
Yeah. And this book of Jude and the Secret Gospel of John, the Legend of Saint Isa, the Gospel of Thomas, the Infancy Gospel of Thomas, the Arabic Infancy Gospel, all of these are about overcoming fear.
Yes.
And they were not able to, even in the regular Bible, the do not fear or fear not is like one of the most common things. So even in the abridged Bibles that we all have access to, the overall message is don't fear. If you can see it through all the negative stuff.
Fear lowers your vibration and it stops you from being able to manifest, and it keeps you in a fight or flight state, which is not optimal for you to grow and thrive. So that is what they want for humanity, is just to keep us all in a low vibe, fear-based state. That's why the news is designed the way it is. That's why TV is designed the way it is, and entertainment.
Well, that's what
give them credit purposes, but scare the shit out of them while you do it.
Yep. Spot on, Lara. That's what the archons want, though. They want people in fear because, guys, the archons, we might think they're evil. I think they're a step beyond. I think they're more, I'm of the mindset. I think bureaucrats are more evil than evildoers. And I think they're galactic bureaucrats, universal bureaucrats who are running a galactic DMV. So if you want to talk about what hell is, I went to the DMV the other day and I'm like, this is it. This is hell right here in this DMV.
It's funny, a galactic DMV. I like that. No, it resonates.
Their whole goal is to keep you there. Both the regular DMV and the galactic DMV, they want to keep you there as long as possible for menial stuff. And that's ironically how the archons function. They want to keep your soul here in the material realm. Yeshua, in this book of Jude, here he was at the beginning after he gathered his 12 or 13 disciples, including females, by the way, different topic, but including females, and sealed them off from the archontic influence, give them the baptism of fire, of water, and all these different rituals to help them overcome the galactic DMV, guys. So
I'm still finding these symbols in people's etheric, right? Isn't that cool?
I have no doubt.
Even 2,000 years later, I'm finding people that were disciples or, students of disciples, and they have very special symbols floating around their etheric. And whenever the guides are like, oh, she's got unique symbols, I'm like, oh, what kind? And they're like, usually there's some kind of a Celtic symbol. One person had a double auric field. And I was like, a double aura? They're like, yeah. It was like, she's from Viking times, and they had magic in Viking times. And it looks like a Celtic braid almost with runes that were carved into the braid. And it's like spinning around her etheric field. And they're like, she's been having this for the last 2,000, like 1,000 years at least. Where every lifetime she continues to have, she still has that protection, because one lifetime as a Viking, she was doing magic stuff for protection and manifested it for herself. It's kind of like the video game analogy where it's like, you know, you saved some things from the previous level that you were able to take with you in order to continue on with your mission.
Wait, you mean reincarnation's real? I'm shocked.
Yeah, you get to keep your upgrades sometimes, which is really cool.
Well, it's that old adage, you know, you don't have your body's not in your soul's not in your body's in your soul, right? And you discard these bodies and take on new ones. But the reason why that resonates with what you said is because whenever we think a thought in our brains, it doesn't stop here. It doesn't stop just in my own skull. That thought, even on our own scientific instruments, can be measured outside of your brain, and it radiates out for infinity. That's just how this works. You know, that's modern science.
Yeah, she was talking about those little ripples go off into the universe, and you have no idea, but they never end. They just keep going forever.
Right. So what are people putting out there? Are they putting good vibes out there? Or are they putting negative vibes out there? And then why do you think meditation's always about visualization and clearing your mind and raising your vibration? You know, it's the metaphor of littering, right? If you're just going to spew negative thoughts and ideas everywhere, you're littering, right?
You're littering. I like that.
Let's clean that up, right? Clean up the environment from the negative thoughts. And that's what so much of meditation focuses on.
Yeah, people don't understand that your thoughts do not exist in your head. You send them out like radio signals out into space. And all of the things that you send out, I mean, people aren't even aware of this. I had this one Hands of Light book that I got over there, adding for some stuff for my Reiki course. And you can literally see, like, they have depictions of what it looks like when somebody is angry. Like their auric field changes, and you can see like almost like bits of lightning coming off of their auric field because they're like supercharged, and they affect the whole vibration of the space when somebody goes into an angry, fit like that. And you don't even recognize that you are sending out a lot of energy to other people, to your environment, and it even creates residual energy that you send to other people, such as curses, spells. People think that you have to, do a spell with like a cauldron and some like I have Newton shit, but no, it doesn't work that way. Like you literally can just curse somebody or do a spell on somebody through words and intention.
Yeah, at the speed of thought, right? It's much faster than the speed of light. Yeah. So,
all of this is very important for people to understand that what you're sending out into the universe. And Yeshua is one of those people who he really does a great job of helping you understand, what you've been giving and receiving. Because he was like, in my opinion, he's like the ultimate giver. You know what I mean? There's even a song, if you guys look it up on YouTube, it's called The Giver. And it's really funny because like this Jesus character walks out of the ocean and he just starts giving everybody what they want. Like there was this one kid who wanted a big ice cream cone. So he's like, here you go. Bam. There you go. Now you got it. And then all of a sudden he's got this giant, like 20 ice cream cone, like 20 scoops on this ice cream cone. And he's like, thank Jesus. And all of a sudden, like 50 of these seagulls come in and attack the kid because he's got all the ice cream. And it was funny because like this like Jesus character starts walking around town giving everybody what they want, but then it backfires because once you receive what you really wanted, you realize, oh shit, I didn't actually want this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a really funny video. It's called The Giver. If you guys are looking, it's a music video. So funny. Duke Dumont is the guy that does it. Well, but it's a great analogy of just a lot of people pray for things thinking they want something. And then Yeshua was like, do you really want it though? Because if I were to give it to you and you were to have what you want, is it really what you needed?
There's a couple of modern books about Yeshua. One of them is called The Freedom Transmissions by Carissa Schumacher. And she's a channel for Yeshua. And in the book, it talks about how Yeshua likes to teach in the void. So very much like the only way to get past a black hole is to go through it. And so he wants you to sit with your negative emotions, with your fears and your darkness, sit with it to get through it And then you can, in a meditative state, give that over to the higher vibration to handle for you after you understand what the lesson is behind it. Because if you're experiencing fear, there's a reason. What's the reason? And so it's a really good book that I highly recommend. Teaching in the Void is one of Yeshua's techniques. It's a wonderful concept.
I like that.
But just in time for Easter, I put out a video on my YouTube channel today, Lara, about some lost teachings of Yeshua while we're talking about him.
I'm going to get the link. I got it.
Thank you very much. This one will also help you stir the pot with the family gatherings. It talks about this book of Zhu that I mentioned to you. Also, the different types of resurrections and the opposite of resurrections, where you open your mouth and someone drops dead, right? So, you got both sides here, right? Yin and yang.
As above, so below. We're coming back to that. That's funny,
right? And so this,
when you get hit by lightning, and God's like, "Well, shouldn't have run your mouth." Like, may God strike me down. Well, all right. Well, you asked for it. Like, you got to be careful what you say.
Yeah, exactly. As your families are gathered around for Easter coming up soon, if you guys are celebrating, I encourage you to think about the different types of resurrections. And the two biggest examples are the resurrection of Lazarus and then the resurrection of Yeshua himself. Lazarus was not resurrected into a spiritual body like Yeshua was. Lazarus came back into the flesh, fully human.
He got super Reiki. Yeah. He got that super Reiki that just.
Yeah. And so he was, and there's numerous examples of the Lazarus type resurrection, numerous examples of it I go through in this video of spirits being called back into the flesh. Now, they weren't ascended. They just popped back up alive again. And they're like, well, I'm back.
Master Usui, that founded Reiki principles, they said was witnessed resurrecting recently dead animals. He would find a bird that just died and he'd be like, oop, and the bird would fly off and they'd be like, like amazing. But yeah, so this is lost knowledge that humans used to be able to do once they got to a certain vibrational frequency and level of awareness.
Yeah, you're referring to something that Yeshua did with birds, actually, in the Arabic infancy gospel. It's called the Saga of the Sparrows. He could bring animals. He loved animals. He'd bring them back to life. But he could also transmute inanimate material to life. So he made sparrows out of mud and then brought them to life. Right.
They used to do that with golems as well back in the day. They would make golems out of all kinds of things, rock and clay, and very interesting.
The church would call this magic or witchery or wizardry or whatever, right? Yeah. But it's not. It's knowledge. And Yeshua just came back with the knowledge, right? He learned from he traveled around the world when he was alive and learned from different masters.
I call them cheat codes because he did it basically went around and learned all the cheat codes for the Matrix.
Once he was done learning all this, he then gathered his own cadre of disciples and started doing these sealing rituals that I was describing, and then began his ministry. He's not doing witchcraft. I would argue the best example of witchcraft is some of the stuff we see in the Bible with different blood rituals, like the Passover.
Thank you very much. Yes, I've been saying that for years. When they take they make you drink the wine and then they eat the little piece of bread and they're like, "This is his blood. This is his flesh." And I'm like, "This is necromancy."
So those different resurrections, like with Lazarus, and there's a kid that fell out of a window just because he fell asleep. I was listening to Peter talk. He just fell out of a window and fell back 3 stories and died. Peter just went downstairs, picked him up, and brought him back. Right? Like, there's stories like that. all over.
Those are my favorite stories. I love it. These are the things that kept me entertained in Christian school. Like these are the things where I'm like, and they would skip over a lot of stuff. You'd be surprised. I'd be like, no, go back to that. And they're like, no. I'm like, no, Lot and his daughters, go back into that. I want to hear more about this. And they're like, no, we're not talking about it. So they would go over some areas very, very quickly in the Bible. We'll put it that way. They were like, skip the chapter.
None of those Lazarus type resurrections, however, are anything like the one that Yeshua went through. That was different. Yeshua ascended.
He ascended. Yes, he ascended.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He had the knowledge, and he tried to teach the knowledge to his own disciples and was successful for a large part. But he was trying to teach that you can traverse the realms, become a spiritual body, and blip out of here or in here at will, right? Because we come ultimately from source energy, which is beyond the scope of this simulation. So we come down here already at a higher point in the structural hierarchy than the archons that run this place. So we have a birthright, is what I'm trying to say. We have a birthright to ascension if we could only remember the knowledge that we lost. That's what Yeshua was trying to teach, the lost knowledge. And that I go over some of that in the video.
That. Really, that was mic drop right there. Exactly. I wholeheartedly agree. Yep. We are taking it back, taking back our planet. Thank you very much. Finders keepers. Yes. We're just making the environment not hospitable for them, and they'll have to go find some other black hole to go and climb into.
And honestly, we have enough to deal with here just with the terrestrial humans. You know?
Tell me about it. I know, right? I love humans. I really do. But they're hard work sometimes. So no wonder the soul guides are kind of like wiping their brow all the time going, shh. It was funny the other day, I was doing clearings and I said something, I forget what it was. It was one of the questions that somebody asked. It was one of their questions. They said, can I book a lost soul rescue for myself as part of my will and testament? And the soul guides, I was like, what do you think about this? And the soul guide goes, I think humans are very strange. That's what he said. He's like, humans are very strange. That was his reply to having a lost soul rescue prepared for your will and testament.
That's like AAA then for the spirit side. Like if you get lost and you're stuck, you're like AAA.
Well, I mean, it's forward thinking at least, preparation. Exactly, Summer. They're like, all right, that's a good idea. I'm not going to get stuck on Earth. I'm just going to make sure, just in case, that I cross over properly. I mean, it's smart, but it's at the same time, it's also, I mean, I think the guides thought it was a little morbid. A bit like,
I mean, effective though, I'm sure, right? So.
Yep, call in for a spiritual tow. Yeah, exactly, Daniel Jackson. Like call in the yes. It reminds me of what was his name? Chiron, the guy that brought the spirits across the river Styx.
Oh yes. Yep.
There's always somebody. There's always a ferryman somewhere.
If I might be mixing up my mythologies here, but they put the gold coins on the eyes.
Yeah.
To have the passage.
A ferryman to carry you across the river Styx. Otherwise, you would end up a lost soul.
Right. Well, hopefully the lost souls will have had AAA in place.
Your family back in Greek times was deny them the coins for their eyes because they would be a wandering soul for the rest of eternity. That was their belief. Mm-hmm.
And to us, eternity seems like a long time, right?
Well, time doesn't exist. So it literally is eternity. It's forever.
Yeah.
But there are spirits that I've found that haven't crossed over since Atlantis, Dr. Scott.
Well, maybe they like the views here.
13,000 years they've been earthbound, and they're pissed. That's what a lot of these poltergeists are. I was like, how does a poltergeist get powerful? They're like, long time. It's a deceased spirit, but it gets very powerful after a very long time. So that's what a poltergeist is. It's an extremely powerful earthbound that has been around for thousands of years, gaining power as an earthbound. But they're still a lost soul. In fact, that's why they like to torment other lost souls.
And some of the stuff in the book of Zhu, Lara, talks about like protection from or against those type of things, not verbatim the way you would describe it. But I'm sensing as you're talking that he was talking about not just archons, but other negative influences.
Oh,
so,
because there's a lot of things that hold you back. In fact, most of the earthbounds that I check, I ask, are there any entities holding them back? And it's almost always a resounding yes. If they're earthbound, there's usually either fear, because I asked the guides, I'm like, why are there so many earthbounds? Why is it like 70% of the people I check are not crossed over? In fact, it was frustrating to me because for years I believed, like as soon as you die, your loved ones, your soul guides, everybody's here with you, ready to go. Like, all right, come on, let's go. And it wasn't only if I believed that it was your choice that kept you here. If you were like, no, I don't want to go yet, guys, I'm going to stay here for a while. That I could have understood. But now I'm like, why so many people, especially people who were ready to cross? And they're like, they can't. First of all, it's the entities that won't let them. They hold them hostage, literally hold them hostage, stopping them from crossing over. And the second biggest thing that stops spirits is fear, because of what religion has created. Because if you believe you're going to be punished, why would you want to go? You know what I mean? It's like, why would I walk out to the principal's office? I'm just going to stay in the class. Thank you very much. I'm not going to the principal's office. I'm going to stay right here. So that's what they believe is going to happen, that there's going to be some kind of an inquisition when they cross over. So it's unfortunate that fear is the biggest thing that holds spirits back from crossing. And confusion.
There's so much there, but you need fear to create an obstacle. If the archons weren't effective at wielding fear, they couldn't create obstacles for anybody or things that weigh them down. It's the DMV, guys, right? Yeshua wanted you to get out of the DMV, so he doesn't want you to fear,
Nope.
And at the end of, I don't know, the end of time, I don't know what end I'm trying to say here, but at the end of it all, long after the sun blows up, right? At the end of it all, the archons that run this realm, they answer to an entity named Yaldabaoth, which is in the Gnostic texts, right? So Yaldabaoth is at the top of the structural hierarchy for this material realm, and he is he's a lot to read about. But at one point, there will be enough high vibrational spirits that we can essentially tell Yaldabaoth to knock it off, right? He doesn't want us to be, I don't want to use the word saved because that sounds too Christian, but he wanted, Yaldabaoth wants us to stay in fear, because as long as we stay in fear and we stay terrestrial, we stay down here, we empower him and his archons. But the more people that ascend and move beyond, the weaker they get, the weaker their hold is on the souls that are here. That's what the Gnostics believed is the ultimate end battle, when there's enough ascended to where we can have a universal Maharishi effect and negate the entire, I don't want to say creation, but negate the purpose that Yaldabaoth made this for.
Wasn't that like critical mass? Isn't that the word I'm trying to think of?
Critical mass, thank you.
Critical mass, baby. That's what we're doing. We're tipping the scales.
Yeah. That's the work that you're doing, that the QHHT people are doing, that all the different multimodal people are doing, the channelers doing.
We're all doing that a little bit, because somebody wanted to know if you do clerics. So Dr. Scott does hypnosis, actually. Dr. Scott is a QHHT practitioner, and he does a lot of healing through regressive hypnosis. He learned under Dr. Dolores Cannon.
Thank you. Yes, I am a QHHT certified hypnotist. Love doing those sessions.
I'll share your link if there's anybody. You're in Missouri, yeah?
Yes. Yep. If you're local, hit me up or come see me. I'd love to.
QHHT has to be done locally, but Dr. Scott is very flexible. There you go. And he's a phenomenal hypnotist. I've known quite a few people that have gone to Dr. Scott for hypnosis sessions, and they always say you've done a phenomenal job. So thank you for everything you're doing for healing the collective. We need healed healers like yourself out there doing this work. It's very important. Raising the vibration of the collective.
I appreciate that. And I follow the work you do also. So,
Thank you. Well, we're all working together, technically, we're working the same thing, trying to change the planet for the better.
One volunteer to another.
Good question. What can hypnosis do to help us? That's a great question, Daphne.
Okay, so my way to answer this question almost changes every week, strangely enough. But one of the best reasons why the theta brainwave state works so well is because in that state of mind, you link to the universal consciousness field. And when you're linking to the universal consciousness field, in that state, you can answer any questions you want about yourself, about others, about things happening, and you'll get a plain English answer to these questions if it's meant for you to know. So people will ask questions like, why do I suffer with anxiety, depression, club foot? Why do I have
such disgruntled problems with my parents? Why am I estranged from, a sibling? What kind of karma am I trying to heal in this lifetime? That's a big one.
So people will come with health questions, they'll come with family questions, they'll come with geopolitical questions. And if it's appropriate for you to know at this point in your life, you can get answers to those things. And the answers are what helps heal the client. I don't heal anyone. The client heals themselves because, again, when you're in the theta state, you're in that ultra creative, ultra manifesty type of state of mind where the placebo effect lives. I talk about the placebo effect a lot, which is the most powerful drug known to mankind. It's the one thing that Big Pharma has to test against. They test against placebo. Well, why is placebo the big bad guy? Because it's the power of your mind. And so clients can heal themselves with their own mental placebo, mental hypnosis, and get answers to their questions. I'm just a guide. I'm like the operator in the Matrix telling you, go left, go right. Tell me more about this. Tell me more about that. What does this mean? I'm like the operator in the Matrix, but you're Neo in the Matrix running around when you're in theta.
Yeah.
So that's, I hope I answered that question. I feel like
that was a great answer. Thank you. Janet had another question. That's a good question. In the beginning of QHHT sessions, is there any way that you check sovereignty or for people to have attachments?
At the beginning of our, when you're saying check for sovereignty, are we talking about like, is there an attachment?
Sure the client is sovereign, that there's nothing that's going to influence from the outside that's going to influence the session.
No, I don't believe sovereign checks are part of it. However, it's part of questioning. So when a client is talking about things they want to know and they're in hypnosis, sometimes you can tell, I know I can tell if they're answering from a state of fear or not, something that's not natural for them, right? And so talking through those things, we can put the fear aside. And once the fear goes aside, there's no obstacle, and the client can experience healing from it. But I don't believe there is someone might correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there is a sovereignty check at the beginning.
Well, we do have quite a lot of clients that come to me and they say, hey, can you clear me on this date because I have a hypnosis session the next day? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I do that all the time for people. In fact, even Dr. Scott has sent me people and we're like, hey, this guy would like to just make sure that he's sovereign first. All right, sure. So it's not a big deal to just book a session the day before just to make sure that there's nothing that's going to influence the session for you.
Correct.
Because they do make it harder. They don't want you to go under. Entities do not want you to go under. In fact, a lot of people struggle going under and they don't know why. And it's because there's something that's stopping them. They don't want you to go under because then you're going to be able to connect and heal, raise your vibration, find out what's going on with your problems in your life. And a lot of these underlying issues will come out. And they're like, no, we want you to have issues. So no. So that was my frustration for a lot of time that I wasn't able to be hypnotized. And then after having my sovereignty, checked and making sure that I am in that space, it's hard for me not to go into a trance. People start doing the drums and I'm already out. I'm gone.
Yeah.
Like it makes it very easy to go under when you are sovereign. Yeah. Very
important for the client to feel at ease, leading up to the session. And so, to the extent that a clearing would help them, great. I would recommend that they do whatever they need to do to feel comfortable leading up to their session.
Well, see, they're like, what is going on today?
Back? Wow.
You're back. Well, kind of. You're on a black screen. They're like, no.
Yeah.
That is too funny.
It's all about fear. It's all about fear. And if a client's afraid that they're not sovereign, rather than do whatever they have to do to feel good leading up to the session.
So. That's wonderful. Do you need to be, let's see. I would love to be hypnotized. I wasn't able once. Can anyone be hypnotized, or it's just not able for everyone? That's a great question, Kat.
This is again, I feel like my answer on this changes every week. Yes, you hypnotize yourself all the time. You hypnotize yourself when you're driving a car, when you're about to fall asleep, you're hypnotized.
Yep.
As you're waking up, you're hypnotized. If you're daydreaming in a boring lecture, you're hypnotized. I think our understanding of hypnosis, the words we use and the things we have in our mind might be a little outdated. Some people think hypnosis is, look at the medallion swinging, look at the metronome. It's not that.
We're getting very sleepy.
Yes. Yeah. I think the modern interpretation of hypnosis is more like almost like a Rorschach ink blot test, where
hey, that's clever, actually.
your hypnotist will be saying, "Tell me the first thing that comes into your mind." The reason why we say that is because the first thing that comes into your mind is often from the theta state, especially when after you've been through a hypnotic regression, right? So it's just that
why so many people experience spiritual stuff as they're falling asleep or as they're waking up. They're hearing voices, they're sensing presence, they're noticing things about their body that are starting to be like, what is that? So that's when you're in that theta brainwave state, when you're slowly dropping your, down to that somnambulistic level.
Yep.
Which is the deepest level of trance. In fact, there's a lot of clinical psychologists and things that use hypnosis, but they don't want to go that deep because they don't know how to explain what happens when you go that deep. They're all of a sudden you start talking to a different client who claims he's in Rome at, like 2,000 years ago. And you're like, this is bizarre. Not knowing that it's actually a past life they're tuning into. So, yeah, I imagine there's a lot of hypnotherapists that were a bit confused as to why their clients started, talking strangely or becoming a different person. And had no idea who Bob, the person on the couch, actually is.
Some of that, it's a two-part realization, I think. One is people don't realize how powerful they are, especially in that state of mind. And so there's a lot more open channels, different types of channels that frequencies that can come in when you're in that state of mind. And some of them are your past lives or future lives. And guess what? You probably didn't speak English in a lot of those. So you might be speaking a different dialect, in a different tone of voice. So some of it is realizing that we're powerful beings.
One case, I think it was Suzanne Spooner's case, where she was talking with a woman that lived in this, I think it was like 13th century Italy. And she kept saying things very strangely. Like she said an Uden table. And she's like, Uden table? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. And then she found out the W's weren't even invented. And she wasn't saying W's. Like, she would leave out all the W's during the conversation. Because apparently W's were not a thing in 13th century Italy where she was. So it's like it was taken from the vocabulary. Like, just gone.
Mm-hmm. You become that person under hypnosis. You become that persona temporarily under hypnosis. So you're going to have, if you lived in the 13th century, you're not going to know what a hovercraft is.
No. Ask them about the internet. They're like, huh? Like, no, they don't know what the hell you're talking about. But it's the same as talking to somebody now about things that went on in 1500s or whatever it was. We don't know what the hell they were doing 500 years ago. We lost a lot of that knowledge. So there's a lot of interesting things that you can uncover about yourself, about your history through hypnosis. It's actually really exciting, the things that you can learn about yourself, because you notice you're not actually changing that much from lifetime to lifetime. You still kind of have the same attitude. You still kind of have the same like family. You have your soul family. You have the same similar friends and things a lot of times. And so it's almost like you're reinventing your avatar every time you come down here in new ways.
That's also part of the beauty of it, in that there's no rush. You can take all eternity to learn all your soul lessons and, wait an eternity to ascend if you want to. I just think, why would you want to go that slow? Maybe some people do. For others, they want to know their stuff. They want to know what they're here to do and, take the next light train out. Right.
I love that Lainey says, I wish there was an ancestry.com, but for past lives. There is. Yeah. Everybody's like, the Akashic Records. No, 100%. The Akashic Records is that. And you can access the Akashic Records in many different ways through hypnosis, meditation, mediumship, you name it. There's lots of ways to access the records. Even
Akashic Records aside, which you're exactly right. I feel like there's enough practitioners now that we could use this next generation AI to construct a timeline, because the AI is smart enough to take all the practitioners' notes and construct them in a proper chronology that's searchable and taggable and editable, so that maybe we could start eventually. That's my 9-year-old waving.
He's so cute. Little one. Oh, bless.
You want to wave? Say hi, Gus.
Hello, what's up? Nice to see you.
Yeah. That's he's got his little fort couch down here. It's not really a couch. It's a cushion fort that he does his homeschool on.
Very cool. Nice one. Yeah. Love that. I just saw the little hand go up. Whee! That was so adorable.
Yeah.
Oh, bless them. Next generation, raising them right. Love that.
Yep.
We're kind of like unindoctrinating right now. That's kind of what I'm doing. It's what I consider to be the education I'm giving my kid is unindoctrination.
Yes. And listening to your podcast can help people do that. And, there's no shortage of materials for people to read, to unindoctrinate themselves. That should be a word on a shirt. Unindoctrinate. I like that. Right? Yeah. It's almost like unlearn. We have to unlearn what we've been taught.
Mm-hmm. Reprogram.
And some of the videos on my YouTube channel will help them do that too, and work with others.
Let's see. There we go. So make sure that you guys check out Dr. Scott's YouTube channel. He's got all kinds of goodies up there.
It's a brand new venture. I have a few goodies up there, and there's more being added every month. So
love that. And I love the name, Matrix Spirituality. Brilliant.
Yeah, I figure why change it now?
I love it. No, that's great. Lynn says you should do podcasts, Scott. I agree completely. Yep, Dr. Scott does great talks, and I think that his this is why we have such a great chat whenever he comes on, because we have, it's like we're both recovering Christians. We're kind of like we're embracing the true aspects of it and trying to cast aside all the indoctrination and all the other stuff. And it's really, I grew up as a born again Christian. I was raised that way. I went to born again, schools, and I, private academies, and was paddled and all of that. We've talked about this many times. So it became a foundation of understanding for me at an early age. And so relearning is a very important thing for me, because I remember so much of this. It's so deeply ingrained. When you've been learning it since you were 5 years old, a lot of this stuff gets very deeply ingrained in your subconscious, and you don't even know it's there. So that relearning is really important.
As you look back on those years now, Lara, how does that make you feel? All that indoctrination at a young age.
At first, it gave me a chip on my shoulder. For a long time, I was very jaded about religion, and so I was very easily triggered, we'll put it that way, when it came to religion. But now I am actually very grateful for it, because it gave me a very good understanding. My father was like that, though. He was a psychiatrist, and he studied religion, and he would take me to different denominations, different churches, mosques, temples, you name it. I would go to all these different ones. So even though he did want me to have kind of a religious understanding of things, he wanted me to have freedom of understanding those and to not be stuck on one book, so to speak. So it was actually very instrumental in my work today now. But it's funny, because I still have flashbacks of where I was really pissed off in school, and they would be forcing me to pray to Jesus, and out of anger and frustration, I'd be praying to anyone but. I'd be like, I'll pray to Zeus. I was praying to Hera. I was praying to all of these different gods all over the world, because I was so jaded, even at young age, even at age 7, 8. I was so pissed off that I didn't want to be told what to do and who to pray to. And, You know what I mean? So it's almost like everybody else is praying to Jesus, but in my head, I'm like, I'll pray to whoever I want. You can't control what I do with my mind, you know? So like I said, we don't change from lifetime to lifetime. I have always kind of, I think, been this way with religion throughout multiple lifetimes.
I appreciate that about you, Lara. And it sounds to me, if you don't mind me saying, that you've had your own birth, death, and resurrection just with the religion stuff. You started out, you were birthed in it young, raised in it young, and then you're like, this sucks, I'm not doing it anymore. So it died. And now it's resurrected again in you, where you're like, wait, there was some truth in there that resonates.
Well, I mean, literally, I felt Jesus's energy. In fact, the medium that channeled Jesus, that was connected to Jesus when we were doing clearing, she's coming on the podcast next week. So you guys, her name is Carolyn Mather. You guys will get to hear from her on Monday. So she'll tell us a little bit about what it was like to connect. She has angelic guides that she works with. We do clearings with angels every day. I sit down with Carolyn every day at noon, and we literally work, with angels to clear beings. And if the angels can't do it, who do they call? They call Yeshua. They're like, all right, this is a bit out of our pay grade. Come on, Yeshua, come help us out. And Yeshua will show up, and we can feel his presence. We can literally sense him around us. And that's why I was laughing with everybody when it happened. I'm like, thank God I have the understanding that I do about religion, because I totally understand how people like Doreen Virtue just spin on a dime overnight. They have one big, profound experience, and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm Christian. I'm Jesus all the way. And I still am. I really do. I love Yeshua, and I'm very grateful for everything he's doing, especially for all the clearing work and all the healing work that they're doing down here. And not just Yeshua. Mary Magdalene has come in many times. Aaron's here. Yes. Archangel Michael comes in. We are so blessed to have these, I don't like to say the word religious figures, because they're so above and beyond religion. In fact, angels are not terrestrial. They're galactic. People don't seem to think that. There's no terrestrial angels. All angels are technically aliens, but they're so highly evolved and that they've become ascended light beings that we think of them as something even more separate than that. So it's literally just, everybody's just people. It doesn't matter what level of the layer that they get to. They're just people that are evolving their souls on a different level.
Again, I think we have that in common. Your work with the angels. I think my work with them is a bit different. I encounter them when I do the group past life regressions. And there's a section in a group past life regression where we meet soul and spirit guides. And usually, and it's to say in a group of 20 people, there's always one that has Archangel Michael, right? There's always one. There's always at least one that has Archangel Michael. And, it's an interesting experience for the person to learn that about themselves. And so
Allison had a good question. Are some soul guides physical, but in another density? You are physical in every density. If you are matching that frequency, that becomes your frequency. So when you ascend to higher dimensions, everything seems physical, even if it's not. This seems physical, but it's not. The only reason it seems physical is because you're locked into it. And that happens across every single dimension. So if you go up to 5D, 5D becomes physical. If you go up to 7D, 7D becomes physical, because you're locked into the same frequency.
And if you put that desk you just banged on under a scanning electron microscope, you'll find it's mostly empty space. It's not even really a thing. It's an illusion of a thing. It's a simulated thing. And if it's simulated, it's made of light. And as we all are made of light, so that'll bake your noodle for a bit.
Yeah, people think that you have to be physical just to take a physical body. No, why do you think the angels are light beings? They can materialize themselves physically. I have my stepbrother saw a demon materialize itself physically once. He's been fucked up ever since. No offense if anybody's watching right now, but he has, because that shook his entire foundation of reality, watching a demon materialize itself physically. It was the scariest thing he'd ever experienced. It traumatized him like you wouldn't believe. But this is what happens when something is powerful enough to anchor itself into a specific frequency. It will appear physical. That is why a lot of mediums can't tell when they're looking at an earthbound, and why people that are able to see earthbounds, they only see them as people, because they can't tell they're not physical until they try to touch them. They look physical because they're locked into the same frequency.
I would add that the universal DMV wants people scared of demons. They want people scared of their own shadow. They want people scared to live. They want people scared to die. They just want you to be scared. And so we humans, because we are creator gods in our own right, we create all sorts of things. Nasty, great, not so great, and everything in between.
Why we're in quarantine and why they don't want us humans leaving the planet, because we manifest some really freaky shit in the astral, and they're like, no, we're keeping them until they stop manifesting freaky shit that we don't want them to manifest off world. We're going to keep them there. So
because we're littering.
Why we have our zookeepers, or however you want to call them, that keep an eye on this planet. Even the good ones who are here to help us, they're like, no, we can't let you out of here just yet. Sorry. You got to sort your shit out first. We don't want you, bingo dobbing bad things on other planets. You got to have to stay here and work on your shit first. But that's why a lot of veterans, a lot of starseeds who are like, get me the hell out of here, they're working on clearing all of that. They're working on healing that karma and repairing all of this so that they can ascend and leave the planet. This is why, many of us are here learning these lessons and trying to heal our past so that we're not stuck in this low density.
Well, and from a different perspective, that resonates if you're them.
Well, they're like, shh, you can't tell them how to escape, Laura.
Here we go again. From their perspective, like, Lara.
Don't tell anybody they can escape. This is the prison planet.
Of course, if they're parental guidance type of entities keeping us locked in our own neighborhood in the galaxy, it's because we've been littering. Our thoughts, we've been littering, right? And they want us to clean up our own mess before we can go outside and play. So, it makes it makes sense.
Well, it is what it is. We're just taking it in stride. The game is rigged, kind of, but we're rigging it ourselves in our new ways. In fact, they even consider starseeds to be like a loophole that never should have been allowed to happen. We should never have allowed starseeds to come in here and intermingle with the normal terrestrial humans. That's what many of the archons and all these other powerful beings believe. In fact, they've even argued that to the Galactic Federation, where they're like, no, stop the starseeds. They're not allowed to come in. So to those of you who are here to change this planet and to make it a better place, thank you. Thank you very much. We need all the backup we can get trying to shift this place.
Yeah, that sounds like something the DMV would tell you. Oh, you didn't bring the 65 forms of ID. You have 64. So you have to go out now and come back in again and wait in line. It's just, it sounds like what they would say, that resonates.
I love what Michelle said. My purpose is to heal Gaia. I love that. Yeah, many of us are not actually even here to do with the humans. They're like, I don't care about the humans. I'm here to heal Gaia. She needs my help. And that's fine. That's wonderful. That's beautiful. Gaia appreciates it. She's very grateful. She said so before. Yes.
And if we can help the humans heal themselves, then Gaia, by extension, will also heal.
Yep, exactly. I love that. What a fun conversation today, Dr. Scott. I loved every minute of this. Thank you.
I have a lot of fun when I'm on here with you, Lara. It's great. It's great to be here.
Great conversations. Thank you so much for all the insight and the exciting things that you're bringing to the table. We love it. So I'm going to share a whole bunch of cool things. We've got the Matrix Hypnosis website. We've got the design website if you guys would like this badass hoodie that I'm wearing. We've got the the Matrix Spirituality YouTube channel. And we've also got the new YouTube video, The Lost Teachings of Yeshua. We got all kinds of exciting things to learn there today. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott. I just shared all those links for everybody.
Thank you, Lara. I really appreciate you. And everyone else listening, thank you too. I appreciate you guys.
Always the pleasure. I love you guys. I look forward to see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful Wednesday, and I will see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.